Um, so just before I get started, is everybody here in economics, or do we have anybody not in economics? So math, engineering, okay. Okay, so I think what I show you today, there's going to be something, for everybody, not just the econ students, but, and it wasn't too long ago that I was kind of sitting in the same spot you guys are in right now, just kind of wondering, what am I going to do after school? How's my degree preparing me for the outside world? So, I'm going to show you a little bit about that from my own perspective. And tell you a little bit about Bell, what we do. I'm sure you know what we do, other than cell phones and landline phones and things like that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that we do. I'll tell you a little bit about the team that I manage and our role in the company, and we'll finish off with just kind of what are the opportunities that we have, not only within business intelligence in this case, but we have several new grad programs that I can touch on, and if you have any questions on that, be happy to answer those. So just quickly what I'll run through today, again, a little bit about me, a little bit about Bell. I've got a short video, and then we'll get into kind of business intelligence and what my team and what my broader team does. And then I'll talk about the BI new program, but again, there's different programs within Bell that are new grad related. So I can talk a little bit about those as well. Okay, so a little bit about me. So currently, I run a team of about 10 individuals, and the area that I look after in business intelligence is called Discovery Analytics. So a fairly analytical team, and I'll go into kind of exactly what we do, but if I think of the makeup of my team, we have math students, we have computer science students, engineers. Unfortunately, I'm the only econ person, but hopefully you guys can change that. There's just different people with different backgrounds on our team, so it really depends on what you're interested in. So, as Sam mentioned, I graduated here with an econ degree and a minor in management science. And I think, I'll let you read through some of my experience. I've been in telco, 10 years now, and I've been to all of them, as you can see. Well, all the ones that matter. So I started at TELUS, went to Rogers, and now I'm at Bell. Did a little bit of a consulting, like CRM type stuff in the middle there. But really, I kind of got lucky. I didn't really think that I would be doing this coming out of school. But, some of the things that in terms of my own interests and what helped me get to where I am, I mean, I've always had kind of that analytical mindset. Like, I always liked working with data, trying to figure stuff out with data, like solving business problems, things like that. If I think about your coursework, like, some of the stuff that I was more interested in, time series, forecasting. A lot of my role right now is kind of in the predictive modeling space and the text mining space, which is all, foundationally, this is stuff you're learning. And then, I mixed in a little bit of math, algebra, calculus, that kind of stuff. And then the other side, which helped me, is just I've always been kind of interested in technology. And technology more from a database and how companies collect data, how they store it, and how companies will leverage that. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And some of the technical experience I didn't really have coming out of school. I'm not a programmer at the core, but it's stuff that I learned. But nowadays, you guys are probably learning some of this stuff like SQL, and some of you are doing Java, Python, things like that. This really advanced stuff. Especially when I look to the far right for you guys, the last bullet in technical experience, like big data, like some of that stuff you're learning now is supporting that kind of advanced analytics. So, that was kind of my journey. So a little bit of business, a little bit of technology, but at the core of it, it's analytics and data for me. So some of you are involved in that. I'm sure some of the math folks or the computer science folks, engineer folks, that's a little bit more along your lines of education. So, I'm sure you'll see some stuff that's of interest to you. So I'm just going to roll a quick video here for you. I swear it's not propaganda, but...
The future for Bell is brighter than ever. Today, we look forward. But first, let's take a look back at the milestones of the past few years that have brought us to where we are today. With privatization on the horizon, we set a clear goal and strategy to drive BCE forward. The goal, to be recognized by customers as Canada's leading communications company through the execution of 6 strategic imperatives. Improve customer service, accelerate wireless, leverage wireline momentum, invest in broadband networks and services, achieve a competitive cost structure, expand media leadership. Critical to the strategy was the 100-day plan that restructured and streamlined Bell, resulting in a leaner, smarter organization, delivering a better customer experience. And that commitment was backed up with the launch of full install for internet and same-day, next-day repair to 95% of Bell's customers. With a clear goal and aggressive investment strategies, we took the competition by storm. With the purchase of The Source and its 700 locations, we vaulted to the #1 spot in distribution points in our industry. Acquiring full ownership of Virgin Mobile gave us a popular brand to take on other low-cost entrants to the industry. And then, another significant game changer, the launch of our HSPA Plus network, a network that allowed us to offer iPhone and gave our devices the ability to work around the world. But we weren't done yet. We purchased an ownership stake in the Montreal Canadiens, giving us a critical marketing vehicle and a window to the hearts and minds of Quebecers. The momentum kept rolling with the Vancouver Olympic Winter Games. We were a national partner and so much more, as every moment of the Games was broadcast to Canada and the world on the Bell Network. We took leadership in another area, one of the most pervasive yet underfunded health issues facing Canada today. The Bell Let's Talk Mental Health Initiative.
This is a big deal. We want to make a difference for all Canadians.
And in 2010, all of Canada's largest banks agreed that being with Bell was certainly better. We launched 5TV in Montreal and Toronto. In Western Canada, we became the premier founding partner of the Vancouver Whitecaps FC and their exclusive mobile provider. What a year 2010 was, and what a year 2011 would prove to be. Let's start with the formation of Canada's #1 media company, Bell Media, making us the true king of content in conventional and specialty TV. Combined with Bell Mobile TV, we now bring Canadians the best and most exclusive content on all 4 screens. It's spectacular work. Bell continues its leadership and investment in broadband networks by being the first to launch an LTE network in Toronto. We're all so proud to have been named the recipient of the Freeman Philanthropic Services Award for Outstanding Corporation. Perhaps our boldest move yet. In late 2011, we changed the game again by purchasing an ownership stake in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, a proven money-making asset, reinforcing our position as the premier content provider in Canada. Bringing together 2 respected and long-standing Montreal brands, Bell's acquisition of Astro establishes us as Quebec's media leader. The acquisition gains Bell a well-seasoned national Astro management team, dramatically expands our French language content, and more than levels the playing field with our Quebec competitors. As we move forward into 2012 and beyond, we have a lot to celebrate. We also have a lot of work still to be done. But the last 3 years have shown that through teamwork and perseverance, the employees of Bell are capable of great things. And we're just getting started.
Okay, so that's just a little promo on us. So, just to summarize a few facts about us, we're a huge engine, as you can imagine. Bell It's a national company. We have over 21 million customer connections. We're $20+ billion revenue company. Our total enterprise value is somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 billion. We have 55,000 employees nationwide. So one of the biggest by far in terms of, just employee count. And we're one of the widely most held stocks in Canada. If we think about our product offering, we've got 4 major ones in terms of, satellite TV and FIBE as well. We have mobility. We have different brands in mobility. So you have Bell Mobility. Some of you might be familiar with some of our other flanker brands like Virgin, Solo. We have Bell Internet, Home Phone, and then we also support things around the business market. So we have an entirely separate division for business-to-business type activities. And then you just saw some of the stuff around Bell Media where we've accelerated our presence in that space over the last few years. In terms of revenue, that's how it breaks down. If you're just curious, different parts of our business, what's contributing to our revenue. Obviously our wireless business is the big chunk. It's the stuff we spend the most money on in terms of capital investment in upgrading our networks. Some of you, if they're familiar with the technology, we upgraded to an LTE network. It started out with speeds of like 75 megabits per second. We've made significant investments in some of the larger centers to get that up to 150. So, we continue to do that. So that's why it's a major revenue engine for us. And then, we continue to invest in other spots, especially FIBE TV and our internet. And we have our legacy business, which is obviously our landlines, so we've been there for a while. Just an overview of the acquisitions. You've seen this or in the video a little bit, but just speaks to, how much, we're investing to become, the leading communications company in Canada. So lots of investment, that not only for our customers, but, to return to shareholders. So, we're part of our strategy. We want to be what we call on, all 4 of the screens that consumers, now today are involved with, right? So what are those screens? TV, your home computer through internet, and then, mobile devices and tablets are right there as well. So, we want to have a presence on everything. And we're going to, we invest in the media side so that we can push content to what the consumers want. So, that's part and parcel of how we deliver. Again, just in terms of the media side, TV, radio, digital, obviously outdoor advertising. So we have presence in all of that. On the mobility side, we have a fantastic network. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are mobility subscribers? Wow, the rest of you leave the room. Okay. Well, I'm going to change that today, hopefully. But, we're pushing content to the screens. We're constantly coming up with product for you guys in terms of the latest devices and things like that. So, it's a significant amount of investment for us. And ultimately, that all ends up in the hands of the shareholders. We've had a 60% increase in our dividend distribution over the last few years, and over the last 5 years we've been returning at almost 200% to the shareholders. So on the street they're pretty happy with us. We continue to drive forward. We also do things to be socially responsible. Have many of you heard about Claire's Big Ride and what she's doing? Okay. So it's all in support of mental health. It's one of our biggest, socially responsible initiatives, and she's riding around the country to raise money for that. Okay, so at the core of what I do, how many of you have heard about business intelligence or heard the term? A few. You don't count. A few. Okay. So has anybody seen Moneyball? Few of you. Okay. So it's kind of, a movie about what we do in our line of work. They used analytics to make their team better. We do the same thing, but in our case, we are using analytics to solve business problems. At the core of it, it's to improve client experience and to provide customers what they need and what they want. So a little bit of a history lesson when it comes to business intelligence. Around 2008 or even before that, within the last 5 years, business intelligence really it was more about reporting and dashboards. If you had spreadsheets, you had a database. If you had an Access database, you had a really big database. And it was all about just reporting and very siloed. If we think about the last couple of years, we've, in our context, we've kind of moved to more of a customer-centric type view of the world, so that we can provide, customers with, not only better service but a better experience, and try to be a little bit more proactive. It's good. In most cases, companies are very reactive to what their customers are doing, or want, or what they say. But some of the best companies that are ahead of the game will actually try and predict what customers are going to do before they even have a chance to do it, so that they can intervene. So that's kind of the space that's we've been working in for the last little while. And then if we think about this year and next year, you get into things where it's more real time. The classic example is if a customer calls in, things pop up on the agent's screen that in real time will assess what's going on with that client, so that there's an immediate action that can be recommended, like right there, real time. And the customer, again, hopefully is good with that, and that results in us being a little bit more efficient, because that customer will never call back, hopefully, because they've got their issue resolved, and they'll have a better experience, which leads to a greater likelihood that they will not leave us. Along the bottom, you can see how big the data gets in just the past 5 years. So our database is somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 600 terabytes, and I'll show you some stuff a little later on, but it won't be soon before we're in petabytes and things like that. So you're dealing with a massive amount of data, and you're trying to analyze it. So in terms of what we do at Bell, our team is our focus and our vision is to provide the decision makers around our company with the best insight and the best information possible, so that they can make a decision. Long gone are the days where executives are going to sit around the table and the one executive is going to make the decision because, I don't know, he's had 25 years experience and he rubbed his gut that day and he said, there's the answer. Like, that's long gone. Key top-level executives are accountable to shareholders. They're accountable. They have to be, responsible. They have to be responsible with the company's money. So, now a lot of companies are moving to, creating teams like ours to make their decisions more fact-based, so that it results in a higher ROI and a higher return. So, a little bit about how we're structured at in our team at Business Intelligence. So, if I think about down the left, we got a lot of sources of data. We got tons of data, believe me. But in the middle is how our team is organized. So if you see that long, that long kind of box, we have a development team. So they look after our environment. They make sure the data's there for us to consume, and then immediately to the right are all the client-facing teams. And then I didn't put it there, but I sit in the middle. So, my team is more focused on advanced analytics. Like I showed you a little bit earlier, we do a lot of the predictive modeling, a lot of behavioral analytics, text mining, which I'm going to show you an example of. It's very interesting stuff. It's very, very much stuff that I focus on. And we're getting into things like big data. So, and we do that we're a support group, so we support all levels of the company. Sales and marketing, talked a little bit about that, in the previous presentation. Product, loyalty and retention, all aimed at an overall client experience that we're trying to achieve. And all of that supports what you saw in the video in terms of our strategic imperatives and how we're going to, leverage BI to make us, the leading company in Canada when it comes to communications. So text mining is just a quick example. So, we're getting into the space where now it's not about analyzing numbers. We can get to the capability where we can analyze text and unstructured data like video and things like that. So anything that's not structured in a database. You think about a database, it's got rows and columns. Well, what does that look like in a video? Or what does that look like in a piece of text, right? It's a lot of valuable information, especially if you have surveys or you have customer feedback or you're getting the voice of the customer. Really important to try and leverage that, right? Because they're directly telling you what's wrong. Pretty powerful stuff if you have transcriptions from when an agent calls the call center. You can analyze that to understand, the dynamic between agent and customer and figure out what needs to be done. So imagine, okay, that didn't turn out very well, but that's over 2,000 words of text. Imagine you had to read that and find out, the context of what that person is trying to tell you or the problem. And then imagine you have, thousands of surveys like that. I'm sure you're not going to read all that. I wouldn't. So our text mining capability allows us to get it down into topics, categories, things of that nature, so that we, at a high level, we can tell, in this particular instance, this person had 12 individual things that were either wrong or, needed to be addressed. If you had to cycle through that, amount of text, and you wouldn't be able to do it. So, that's kind of just a quick example of some of the advanced kind of stuff that we're doing, and we're getting into things like what I just mentioned in terms of agents and customers, analyzing that interaction when they have a conversation. So it's just an example. Yeah. We use SAS for that. We have a tool, text mining tool. It's natural language processing algorithms allow us to sift through massive amounts of data in a very short period of time and come up with categories and put everything in context. Okay, so the new frontier, I guess. What's now the thing in terms of analytics and advanced analytics? So today, data, if you think about data, it's now an analogy that I like to use. Data's like crude oil now. There's massive amounts of data that are being collected by companies. And in its rawest form, it's valuable if you can find and tap into it, if you can find the insight and the key nuggets that you need. So, data now is the fuel for a lot of what companies do. It's at the core of, if you think about the big businesses, think about the Googles, the Yahoos, the Facebooks, the Twitters. If I think about other companies, think about the big ones like GM, think about your retailers, Walmart, Target, and other telcos around the world. Like they now are collecting data to leverage, and leverage it so that they can better provide, services and products to their customers. So the game kind of changes now, because before you couldn't store this amount of data. The technology was lacking, but now it's, technology's caught up, and you can store massive amounts of data in a very quick period of time, and you can get to it. You can analyze it. The tools are at the point where it is possible now. Before you couldn't do that. So just to give you a sense of what I mean by big data. So there's 4 key things for us in terms of big data at Bell. We define it as, the data is very big in volume. So, that's a very large number in that top left box, right? it's 2.5 exabytes of data are created digitally online every day. By 2012, it'll be up at 2.7 zettabytes, 7.9 in 215, and estimates at 2020 will be at 35. There's massive amounts of data, huge. You think about the other V when it comes to big data, the velocity. So I've got some stats up there. So the first one, I'm all sure you're familiar with the like symbol from Facebook. What those two numbers represent, 950 million customers send 200 or, click like 2.7 billion times a day. So that's a massive amount of data if you have that. Twitter, 400 million tweets are sent a day. YouTube, 72 hours of video is uploaded every minute. So think about that, like how big that data is. Massive amounts. The variety of data also that customers collect. You think about social media data, you think about customer data, transactional data, it's just massive, like a massive amount of data. And then value as well, like, within all of that data, there should be value for you to tap into, right? And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about like right now in terms of how do you get at it, right? And kind of what skills do you need to do to be able to tap into this kind of stuff. So, business intelligence. How many of you heard the term data scientist? Yeah, okay, a few of you. It's a pretty sexy job, I guess. So there was an article in the Harvard Business Review not too long ago, complete write-up on how this is changing. It's a pretty hot field right now. It's a good time if you are interested in things like analytics, like the technology. It's a pretty interesting field to be involved in, and that's at the core of what we do, and that's kind of what we're looking for. I'll show you in the grad program slide. So typically what does a data scientist do? Well, he's not your typical statistical analyst. He's not going to sit there. He or she is not going to sit there and just look at a spreadsheet. I highly doubt that. And he's not going to. He or she is not just going to come up with little graphs and kind of have a trend line and things like that. It's really getting to, sifting through all that data and trying to find meaning and try to find, really valuable insights that people can leverage. A lot of the data that comes in with this type of big data, like it's messy, it's big, hard to manage. So a typical data scientist needs to do like end-to-end stuff, right? So they need to, you got to have kind of that inquisitive mind in terms of asking questions. You do a lot of testing and hypothesis testing and things like that. You got to experiment with your data. If I go down the list, it's really about maybe the bottom three with a bit of that bottom fourth one. It's really trying to understand what's in the data and how it relates, to each other. It's really about creating data-centric products, and what I mean by that is, for your internal customers, or it could be external, but it's the insights that you're going to gain and get out of the data. That's the most valuable. That's what external people to your business might pay for, or that's what your key executives are going to base a very large decision on. And it's all about telling the story with the data as well. So our BI new grad program, we're, given all that, the data scientist position, and role is a very complex one. It requires a very unique skill set. It's hard to hire talent, and that's why we have a new grad program. We go out to the universities, talk in September usually, or through things like this. We launched ours in 2011. We provide a lot of training, and both on the technical and analytics side. You have access to the latest technology, the latest tools to do this stuff. It's a great learning environment. And to date, you can see at the bottom, we've hired 8 in total not to well, my team is comprised mostly of Waterloo grads, no bias there, but we across the team we have 8 of us, and you can see since 2011, we've really ramped up. We've hired, after 2011, we basically hired 20 new every year. So we're trying to meet the demand with right out of school, with bright young students like yourself who are interested in analytics, who are interested in data. So our goal is to build the best BI team in Canada, hands down. Right? So we have the right vision. We have huge executive support. They invested over $25 million in our team alone last year in capital projects. We're looking for the right DNA, quantitative or technical degrees, analytical mindset, learn on the fly, being inquisitive, things like that. We have a great environment. We moved into a new spot this year, which is a very collaborative environment. We don't have little, we don't have little desks and you just kind of sit there. It's a very open concept. It fosters thinking and cross collaboration amongst the teams. So it's a great workspace. And we provide the right training to you. Both on the technical side and the business. So from a tool standpoint and from a business knowledge standpoint. Yes.
How do you handle the noise from open works? I mean, people need to focus. How do you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, it comes up. I mean, we have different areas where it's more of a common area versus, at your desk. Yes, the desks are kind of, if it kind of looks like that, but not really. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a problem with the noise, but that's probably because I'm in meetings all day. But but I have one of our folks here with us. You can ask her what it's like to work at Bell. Her name's Melissa. She's been with us for about 6 months now, and if you have a chance to talk to her afterwards, I would strongly encourage it from a new grad perspective. I mean, she's in the program right now, and I hope she likes it. She's still here with us after 6 months. So, but it's really a kind of a non-issue. We're the team, likes to be collaborative. So it's really a non-issue for us. Just an example of some of the things that our new grads have done. So the first 3 guys that are up there are actually on my team. Well, the 2 of them are Waterloo grads. Mark is my team lead in big data. He's leading the strategy for Bell when it comes to big data. Kyle's a graduate of Waterloo. So he was in our first batch in 2011, and then we have a few other folks. Chris and Yan are not on my team, but again, if you take a look at the analytics they've done, they've come in and provided huge value to the company. Like, some of these numbers are not trivial when it comes to value. So new grad program, 2014, 2015, we're kind of looking for 50. There's about 400 in the program right now. So if you have a chance to come to the info session in September, I highly encourage it. I don't know the dates, but if you do see something in terms of Bell coming to speak, I highly encourage it. And I'll be there as well as my peers from other groups that are hiring. So there's probably going to be something for everybody.